Turkey. Recoded is a nonprofit tech organization preparing youth in conflict-affected areas to enter the digital economy as software developers and tech entrepreneurs. Today, we are doing the fourth session of a series with founders and investors of technology companies where we get to learn the stories behind how they built their businesses. We also get to hear from them about how businesses can adapt quickly during COVID-19 and what opportunities they believe will spring from the crisis. But before we get started, I just wanted to lay down a quick round of ground rules for this session. The conversation between Fadi and myself will take about 30 minutes. Please use the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen to leave comments or to ask any questions. And you can do that at any time during the session. Our team will be selecting some of your questions, which I will ask the speaker in the last 30 minutes of our session. Your microphones will remain on mute during the session, but feel free to put your camera on if you wish. We'd love to see your faces. And please note that the session is being recorded. We are able to do this speaker session because of a partnership between our team at Recoded, Techstars, the GIZ PEP program, the Promotion of Economic Prospects in Turkey, and Impact Hub Istanbul. We're teaming up to provide opportunities for youth across Turkey to enter the digital economy through tech and career prep training. Now back to today's speaker. Fadi's vision is to accelerate the conditions for world peace through entrepreneurship. His in-depth knowledge and experience building successful startups in Silicon Valley and around the world have earned him the respect of founders, investors, and policymakers alike. Seeking to rethink the traditional accelerator model, Fadi founded Blackbox in 2011 with a commitment to serving entrepreneurs first and expanding entrepreneurial opportunity in all corners of the globe. Prior to founding Blackbox, Fadi was the founder and CEO of TechVenture. During this time, he advised 43 startups, with more than 32 exiting successfully and a large majority of the remainder profitable and growing. Fadi is a frequent speaker at several global conferences, an active mentor with startup accelerators in various international hubs, and venture advisor to several international investment funds. He served 2 years as a board member and an executive committee co-chair of the MIT Stanford Venture Lab. Fadi is originally from Hama, Syria, and immigrated to the United States in 1986. So welcome, Fadi. It's really nice to host you today, especially during this time of radical changes for businesses around the world. Would you like to take a minute to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Jamie. Yeah, it's nice to be with you all. Jamie is correct. My name is still Fadi, and I'm from Syria. And I've been living in the US now more than I've lived in Syria. And I currently reside in California. So I started my career, started a tech venture, was a business that I started to help build teams for startups here in Silicon Valley. And that was a very exciting experience for me. I get to work with very experienced entrepreneurs, helping them hire and find some great talent to build the startups. So I learned a lot about startups. I learned a lot about how good founders, I started noticing a lot of patterns. I worked with many dozens of startups. This is in 1996 when I started. And then after the dot-com crash, I start working more in an intimate setting with an earlier stage startups. And from that point on, between 2003 and 2009 is when I worked with about 43 startups. Big majority of them have become very successful. They were acquired, they went public. And it was always an exciting journey to me to work with companies from the first 5-6 people into maybe 50 to 100 maximum. And then I usually take myself out. It becomes a big company by then. And then I started Blackbox after that to help founders from all around the world learn these best practices and the mindset of Silicon Valley. And we developed very successful programs, and happy to talk more about that.
Awesome. So you touched on this a little bit already, but the entrepreneurial journey is often more challenging and less romantic than people think. How did your journey start exactly? And can you tell us more about how you started your businesses, from being raised in Hama to founding 2 successful firms that support tech entrepreneurs in the US?
Yeah, so when I moved to California, I started actually the first business with my wife at the time, and it was more consultancy in architecture work and buildings. And I was good in kind of the business piece of it. And then I figured that was during the recessions in the early 90s, 1992. And then I wanted to work more in technology, so I took a job at a recruiting firm and that was working with startups at the time. And that's when I learned more about the technology and how to hire people. And a year later, I decided to start my own firm, and that was Tech Venture. And it was very interesting. I guess it's my nature. I don't know where. Come from a region in the world, we don't have a lot of respect for authority or something. We always want to do it our way. And I decided that this is, I could find a better way of doing it than the firm I was working with. And so that was in 1996 when I started Tech Venture. And it was very exciting time. It was during the dot-com boom, a lot of new companies, and it was very, very fascinating. I remember one time, so we used to look at who are the companies that got funded, and then from a database, specific database, and then contact these people. It was great. You just go to the internet, and then you find these people, you find their pictures, profile, their phone numbers, and you call them, email them. And so I learned about a company. It was at the time called Amazon. It was just got funded from very prominent, one of, Kleiner Perkins was very big venture capital firm. And I called this founder, and I used to call with the, it's like, what is the most difficult position you're challenging to find a candidate for? And maybe if I hire someone, would you pay me? That was the pitch generally. And Jeff Bezos called me back. I left a voicemail and he called me back, and I talked to him, and I remember, and it was like, Amazon, you're gonna sell books? I don't know, Amazon is like, crazy forest, whatever. Like, I don't see it. Like, oh, I thought this is actually, yeah. So I thought like, this is not gonna work. So that was like my very first few weeks that I remember vividly, that call. And start working with these companies. It was really interesting to see how fast things were moving. And we've experienced the dot-com crash in early 2000, 2001. After also 9/11, things came to really a stop. So there was no need for companies to find recruiters. There was a lot of people looking for jobs, and very few companies hiring. So I worked a little bit with a nonprofit that helped people with disabilities for a few months, and then I decided in 2003 or so to come back when economy started to pick up again, and I changed my model into consultancy and start working closely with earlier stage companies, and working with people starting sometimes in their homes, or in working at a VC firms or at a small office, and seeing them through that kind of growth. So it's interesting to always recognize the patterns between the founders. Why do they start companies, and what makes successful founders? Mm-hmm. I forget your question. Was it? I'm sorry.
You're there. You're answering perfectly.
Yeah.
But so this kind of moves into my next question. What inspired you to start Blackbox? Is this something that you saw going on in the tech ecosystem at the time, or is the type of support that entrepreneurs got from Blackbox something that you wished you would have had?
Yeah, it's a good question. So that what happened, there was a pivotal time in 2009. I went on a tour with people from Silicon Valley to Europe. It was called Geeks on a Plane. And we started in Washington, D.C. It was Obama first year in office. We visited the White House, and then we went to London, to Paris, and to Amsterdam and Berlin and Prague, and met with different entrepreneurs in those cities. There was different conferences, and we were like a delegation from Silicon Valley to help share knowledge. that was an aha moment for me, frankly, because at the time I was convinced that it's only technology and startups only happens here in Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a recognition that now companies could start and you could build it because of the internet. You could build from anywhere, and talents are everywhere. So Silicon Valley doesn't have a monopoly on talent. There is a monopoly more on opportunities, but talented people are all around the world. So that was for me what I called then. It's like it's like an entrepreneurial revolution. It's the ability for people to, the internet kind of matured, and there's a lot more applications been developed, and the iPhone was out and things changing. And that was the thought, like, what if and it was after 2008 financial crashes again. So I've been through a couple of cycles in the economy. So I didn't want to be kind of waiting on these cycles. I wanted to create something larger. And also by then, Y Combinator has started. It was like a few accelerators came back into the scene. And I thought, like, how do we create an accelerator that scale on a global level? Because the gist of the accelerator at the time was you have, one or two successful founders, and they're mentoring few startups, and with their knowledge, helping these startups grow, and they're giving them money as well. So it was like, that's kind of limited, and how do we do something on a larger scale? So at the time I worked with a couple of friends who were interesting. One of them was doing research on entrepreneurship as a management science, and he was at Stanford. And then he decided to drop Stanford and join me to start Blackbox. And we launched something called the Startup Genome Project. And the Startup Genome was a research project collecting information from many startups about different stages and different types of growth. So from the beginning, the thought was like, how do we take this knowledge and make it available to entrepreneurs all across the world after my exposure to these entrepreneurs and recognizing that there's a lot of talent outside. And we started without really necessarily any clear business plan or a specific way. It was very obvious that there's value to be created in here. And if you work with entrepreneurs and help them, I mean, that was my motto. It's like, we'll figure out something that will work. And then about a year later, we spun off the Startup Genome to become more like business intelligence tools. And I launched a residential program. So from my experience, like, the most successful piece of the startups always, and the highest risk of the startups, the reason startups fail, in my opinion, is because of founders' issues and founders' conflict. So it's all really about the people. It's not the idea, it's not the money. It's how strongly the right people can come together, and what is it that they could be clear on about a common vision of what they want to create, and how they could execute and work on that together. So I thought if we moved into a big house, and I thought if we have a house that we could bring really a lot of my good contacts, that a lot of successful companies and people I hired, I would see them sometime working from coffee shops, and I know, this guy or this guy, they've made a couple of $1 million in that exit, but they still like very humble, and they're working on their own. And it's like how we bring these like-minded people together to help create more, the next big thing. So it's more, how do we connect people together? So I started the Blackbox Connect program, which was to invite founders from outside of the world. So the idea at the time was, for me, was clear, is there's very, very talented people in many countries, and very talented startups. And there's a concentration of startups and resources in Silicon Valley. It's like, how do we take the knowledge, and that was through the Startup Genome Project, and share that? And then how do I do something on the human element and connecting people together, and building these bridges with them, and the mentors and the advisors and the investors in Silicon Valley. So we launched a program where people could come to and live together in the house. And it's interesting. One of the first companies we've had was from Egypt. What is it called? The one that you shake the phone, and they just raised $5 million.
Wow.
Shoot, the name is just see, I need coffee maybe. So it's I'll remember in a minute, but so we brought companies from different parts. So the founders from many countries, maybe, when we started, there were about 10, and then what we kind of, the program matured, we would have about 15 founders from 15 different countries.
Mm-hmm.
They live together for 2 weeks, and we bring some of the most successful founders that I know in here and experts to share with them in a more intimate home environment where there a lot gets to be shared and open and learned from. And it was a very successful program that we've done.
Yeah, I loved hearing more about that program and reading about it. And this is a perfect segue to my next question. So last year, you actually decided to stop running Blackbox Connect in order to take some time to focus on the entrepreneurial potential of refugees. So to date, what steps have you taken to support refugee entrepreneurship? Or what are your future plans?
Yeah, so we did the program 25 times. We have over 420 founders from 63 countries participate. I was very excited over the years. We were partnered with Google. We were Google most valuable partner twice in 5 years amongst a network of 50, 60 partners globally. The most excitement I was getting is when we will have founders coming from like Pakistan and Sweden and Venezuela and Egypt. So founders from all different parts of the world, but they recognize no matter where you come from, it's really you're on in the same challenge, you have the same issues. And so these connections were very meaningful. And I was more excited to want to help people from these developing countries and specifically from the Middle East. We've had founders come from Gaza. It was really exciting. I couldn't wait for the day we'll have founders come from Syria. So after we did the program 25 times and there were some issues with the environment here and issues, we start having issues with visas specifically, visas blocked specifically for the kind of people that I wanted to serve more. So I decided to take some time off, and I had visited Syrian refugees in Turkey and Lebanon, and decided that I wanted to kind of help more share, bring my resources specifically to those demographics. Mm-hmm. So I took time off, and then I joined an NGO called Spark. Some of you may have heard of Spark. So I decided to join Spark to work with them on launching a very large initiative that helped create many jobs, 50,000 jobs for students and Syrian refugees in 5 countries. This is in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Jordan, Iraq, and Syria. And my work was to work with the startups and with the small and medium-sized businesses and helping them with growth. So it was a perfect opportunity to kind of shift my attention and join this larger mission and help contribute to supporting startups in the Middle East. So I decided to put the activities on hold for a while and until things. And now we have COVID. It's interesting. I mean, this is the life of an entrepreneur, or most of us, like the uncertainty, the changes that could happen out of your control. And how you always kind of have to find a way to adapt and figure something out. Mm-hmm. So just to back up a little bit on that, it was for me after 2008 financial crash, and I was thinking like there's this entrepreneurship opportunity. So instead of helping company just grow their team, what if I help company grow as an organization, help the companies grow? Mm-hmm. And so it's what these situations bring. What different situations bring in the world, it allows us to kind of also notice how do you adjust where you could add value and pivot and adjust to your service or create a service to meet that.
Amazing. Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit already, but have you been able to use the Blackbox model to design other programs, the one you mentioned in MENA? And do you think you'll be able to create something on a larger scale to better serve refugee entrepreneurs?
So we've done, we were doing something called Blackbox Ignite. We did it about half dozen times. We did a Blackbox Ignite for female founders in India. So just to highlight also, it's like what the intention of Blackbox was to bring to serve everybody and level the ground, the playing grounds for everybody. We had close to half of the founders, 40-some% were women founders. And so we did the first program in India for also about 20 women founders, and we call it Blackbox Ignite. So we will take a couple of investors and experts from Silicon Valley, and we go to a partner in this region, usually an accelerator, an incubator, just entrepreneurial community, and work with their startups, bring some guidance, do some mentorship, do some talks, and then go do another day all one-on-one mentorship. And then we used to select some of those to come to Blackbox Connect. So we did Blackbox Ignite in India. We did it twice in China. We did it in South Korea. We did it in Australia. We did one in Turkey with Startup Turkey. So that was really also in an interesting way, but it was part of the cycle of how do we partner with these organizations that nurturing entrepreneurs around the world, and how do we help them find some of the highest potential companies who would come to Silicon Valley to participate in the program. So now I'm in this process of figuring out how do we design something also targeting specifically founders from the Middle East and help develop something on those sorts. So the project with Spark is we have an ongoing discussions. I'm working in partnership with Sparks on some of these initiatives. Hopefully we'll formalize something in the next few weeks and we will announce it.
Good. I'm so excited to hear more about it. So everybody is looking for answers these days on how to respond to the first global pandemic in more than a century. So obviously we are now feeling the disruption to our lives and to our businesses. But what do you think waits for us on the other side? What opportunities do you see for startups and would-be entrepreneurs after COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could answer this with I know exactly, but I think definitely to your point, the world is changing, and from the perspective of entrepreneurs, this is not a whole lot different than the reality of everyday life. There's always something could be surprising. This is a larger surprise affecting everybody around the world, and we're seeing how it's unfolding. Some of the things that we see, it's almost like a natural evolution of how things happen. When I mentioned when I went to Europe and I could see these entrepreneurs from all of these countries are having great ideas, it was because of the internet. It's facilitated the way that you could build a company from anywhere and offer something online, and other people from different part of the world could use your product and service. So there's this trend that we see is how the world is in a way getting smaller, or we're getting closer to each other, getting more connected. Starting with airplanes and then telegrams and telephones, and we could talk, and then there was the internet and emails, and now Zoom. It's like, so it's like the world and people keeps coming closer together. So when you see these trends, like despite things could bring businesses and put us at home and whatever, but yet we can still connect. So some of the things that connect us together, a lot of the tools, that the opportunities right now are growing, like Zoom stock is going up very high right now, is because of these collaboration tools that connects people, that solve these problems, that also it seems to be here to stay. It's, when the travel come back, people are not going to travel as much. They still will be replacing a lot of travel with video conferencing and more sophisticated video meetings and conference tools. I think some of the a lot of the things that I see changing is related to when the world is connected. We had this global supply chain, and we're buying products from different countries and all of that. So when that's broken, that wasn't expected. We thought that would last forever, and now we're realizing the value of building local supply chains. Like, how do you create something in partnership with local people? How do you create a service where your suppliers and the people that you're depending on their other services to put your product or service together with are in close proximities, and you can automate on those local level. So something in the supply chain and immediacy. So some of these things is like the delivery services. I see that there's an uptake in the online delivery. There is now a more willingness for, you know, a falafel shop in Gaziantep to have an iPad and be able to take on orders online that they probably didn't have that before. Mm-hmm. And there is also the you know, other adoption, like there's many people probably never ordered grocery or shopped online. They're willing mm-hmm. to do that on their phone right now. And so those are the opportunities. What we've seen unfolding in front of us is like some of the consumer behavior change. Some of the businesses are adopting to different things. So that's where typically entrepreneurs, you know, find opportunities.
Awesome. So I just want to ask you one more question before we move on. I see there's a lot of questions coming in the chat, but what advice do you wish you had received when you were starting out as an entrepreneur?
What advice I wish I had received? It's probably, I don't have a regret. I don't think like what I didn't know. I always enjoyed the process of discovering as I did in that. I think the one thing I wish I had, you know, starting from the beginning is to have the global mindset. I spent more than half of my career very focused on you know, Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley is like a bubble in and of itself. Mm-hmm. So there are different mindsets and different things. So I wish I had this exposure before and work more on a global scale from you know, I enjoy that higher level right now much more.
Great. So let's take a look at the questions that you've all asked for Fadi. The first one is from Emre, and he asks if you could give an estimated time and amount of effort for you to construct a solid team that will be working on projects smoothly. And what are 3 things you wish you knew from the start? I think you just covered that a bit.
Yeah, it's a great question. So this is my strong domain of expertise is really building the teams, and you know, I broke that part into, you know, the team. You have like almost a 3 stages. You have the founding team. It's, you know, to answer the question briefly, it's very hard to put an estimate on time. What is time? It's hard to kind of couple that. If something is not working for a long time, you're struggling not to find some people. You may have to review your expectations. But the stages are, you have the founding team, which is a key. This is the core foundation of any startups. It's very important for the founding member of the team, 2 or 3 founders, to be aligned in their vision about what is it that they, you know, they see the big long-term, you know, the why they're doing this. Mm-hmm. So they're to be on the same page of why we're building this. It's very important to have a 100%, not even 99% level of trust and respect amongst each other. So the founding team must have a very, very strong sense of knowing that you have a complementary skill is the third thing. It's like, you're very good in building, you know, great product, Jamie. I trust you. You're the smartest technical person. You're the CTO. We trust you with that. And, you know, I'm the one who's going to be doing the business. You trust me fully equally with that kind of a thing. So it's having complementary skills and having really high level of trust and because this is very collaborative. So the second stage is after you kind of get the founding team together, you're building some minimal product. You're building this, you know, the early growth team. This is the first maybe, you know, 6 to 10 people on your team. And that's probably, I'm assuming most of you in these 2 stages. That's very important now to bring people also aligned for long-term vision. I would highlight here hiring more smart people and not be too specific on the skill set. Be more specific on the ability to adapt and learn, and have resourcefulness, and be also aligned with the long-term vision while we're within this. So it's much better to bring people with passion and enthusiasm about what they love to do. That is what you guys all building together, than to have someone who must be great in PHP or Ruby on Rails only. People could learn different things, but the bigger thing is most important. So, and then the late growth is the high growth is when you raise Series A and you're in the high growth. It's a different type of process. So each stage you're in, there is a different challenges, and there is different ways to assess who do you hire, and what you should be focusing on. I hope that answered the question, Emre.
Good, awesome. Okay, our next question is from Ewelina. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but the question is, can startups in Europe and the US actively support tech ecosystem in developing areas? And if so, how? Yeah,
that's a great question. So absolutely, the answer is yes. And one of the highest value founders get is really from learning from each other. And it's very, very valuable for a startup that is already, let's say they had there and they raise funding, they have good traction, they're in a growth mode, they're 2-3 years old or whatever, to work with a startups, in developing countries or in their own region, and to work with people who are starting in the first months or the first years, or behind them in that. So they have a lot to offer them. A lot of the questions of these early challenges is much more easily explored with founders who are just like a couple of years ahead of you. So that's one of my ideas, is leveraging the network of Blackbox founders and helping the new startups that we will work with in the MENA region.
Awesome, it's great advice. Another question from Mohammed is, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for Middle Eastern entrepreneurs living in unstable environments such as Iraq and Syria? Mohammed and his co-founder are from Iraq, for context.
I have like the most respect, and I mean, those are like really the heroes. This is like, talk about the challenge of being an entrepreneur in the first place. Even in Silicon Valley, people say being a startup founder is like, chewing glass for breakfast every morning. So imagine you're chewing glass and then you have bombs dropping around you. It's just, with, I'm being dramatic here, but it's definitely very challenging. I recall my experience. I went to Gaza about 4 years ago, and I worked with 4 or 5 days. We did mentoring. We did like a startup weekend extended with founders in there. And I remember some of the challenges where they only have electricity 6 hours a day or something like that. It's like, how do you code when you don't have? So limitations in conflict zones are extremely more intense on pressure on the founders, and make their life a lot more difficult. So my challenge for them is to continue to use their creativity in figuring these things out. I mean, I remember in Gaza, there was one woman founder who started something similar to Uber. I mean, there were some, a little bit, connected the taxi people together with their cell phones and things like that. So it doesn't have to be sophisticated application. So work with these limitations. So try to solve for what's available in front of you, and not necessarily, take it one step at a time. And even this, keeping your solution simple and basic to accommodate what's the boundaries that you only could work within, are very good to fine tune on that level. And then keep the hope, and hopefully things ease and things come back a little bit to more peaceful, and you could grow from there. But I've heard this from 2 people I respect. One, in different ways, like Barack Obama and Eric Schmidt, or the chairman of Google, said the biggest problem in the world are best solved for entrepreneurs. Like, you know, like some entrepreneurs are the best solution. That's really how it's put. It's like, if you want to solve problems, entrepreneurs are really the best option to solve problems. Entrepreneurs always have an optimistic approach to viewing possibilities and figuring out how to do things. So entrepreneurs in conflict zones, in difficult regions, they're the hope that they could build this region again when hopefully peace come back, and they will be great successful pillars.
We hope for the same thing. Our next question is from Eamon. If a team wants to start a small company but has a really small or no budget, what steps do they have to take first?
So at the early stage, when you're starting a company, you're more than likely not making money yourself. So you don't have budget. You may have some savings, so you're only, you know, paying for your own living expenses, and you want to find people who are willing to work on those bases. I mean, those are the true co-founders. You know, the difference between co-founders and early people are the co-founders worked on ownership. They have like a 10% ownership of the company, and they're working on potential vision of building it into something hopefully successful that someone will buy it or go public. So it's a challenge when you don't have resources. Try to see if you could do some consulting, and you know, there are people who they must buy certain resources that they need really the cash to buy that, even if they need to hire someone on a short term or to hire a tool or something. It's using the creativity and the difficult challenge that, you know, to kind of find a solution there. Raising money from friends and families, typical in different part of the world, to kind of you know, help start this. But I understand also in conflict zones and places where there is no stability, you don't want to take money from family for this unless they have, you know, abundance of it.
Mm-hmm. Great. So our next question is from Hussein. He's an Iraqi entrepreneur, and he has problems with PayPal, another payment system. Like, for example, in I think both Turkey and Iraq, PayPal is banned or forbidden. So it's a super challenging process for entrepreneurs in and outside of Iraq. Do you see any solution for this in the future, or do you have any suggestions that you would be able to share for a situation like this?
Yeah, so Hussein, there is a company called Stripe. You've probably heard of it. Stripe is basically almost, you know, replaced Google, PayPal for businesses. But Stripe is a payment system it's a company founded by two Irish brothers. Young guys, they're not even 30-year-old now, but the company is worth over $30 billion already. So they're facilitating payments for all of the applications. So they do the work that what PayPal is supposed to do. So Stripe launched something. They face this challenge because they have a global vision. They want to increase the world GDP or they want to increase the internet GDP is what they put it. So they want to help companies who are doing e-commerce and online transaction with simpler and more secure technologies. So there are challenges on the regulation elements. They could only work in countries where the banks have international relationships. And I assume that's not the situation in Iraq right now. And that's probably why there's challenges with PayPal. So what they did is they created a program called Atlas. So it's atlas.stripe.com. If you search Stripe Atlas, you probably find it. That they can help companies outside of in those regions that they don't have the abilities. So they've done it in many countries in Latin America, I mean, and other part of the world. So founders from these countries they help countries set up a legal entity in the United States, and they help them open a bank account in the United States without having to come here, without having to need a visa. And so they transact with that bank, but there need to be a way to get the money from the United States to Iraq, which is, I think, is still probably a challenge. So that's one of the solution that I know of. I know of another potential solution with Estonia. Estonia launched a program also for e-residency. So they give an e-residency, do similar things to Stripe. So they set you up as an entity based in Europe, but there's still, you need to find a way. I mean, you could manage the accounts, but if the transaction inside of these countries are still a difficult challenge, you need to find some kind of a creative way to sort it out. It's very hard. Sometimes it's a combination of these services, working with some of these payment system and some of their services doing things similar to the Hawala system. So people pay each other's in these different regions. So it is going to take a lot of creativity to solve something right now. In here, it's a few clicks. I mean, that's an example of what we're talking about. So I admire that you're trying to find solutions, and if you continue, hopefully you will.
Great. So our next question is from Ayad. Do you think that the investment in mobile applications, artificial intelligence, and embedded systems is a good idea in the Middle East?
I really don't think. Yes, I think if you have the talent, you have the idea, you have the skills, you see the possibilities. You know, we're competing on those are domains of knowledge. They're not domains of industries. So when you're talking AI, when you're talking robotics, when you're talking embedded systems, you know, we're talking the principles of physics and chemistry and math, and this is the great things that your minds like yourselves have the same capacity of learning this information and discovering opportunities and ways of creating solutions based on this knowledge that you would put. And if you could package that in a product, in an idea, in a concept, and you could take it to market, it's worth exploring. And I think that's one of the things that we will see. The automation is definitely one, and the robotics is something that we will see. I think this is, in the next wave, we're going to see a lot more localized manufacturing versus all the manufacturing done in China, which could get interrupted as we see now. So it's hard to find investors maybe in the Middle East who are, you know, most investors may be looking for the quick turnaround in the financial. They want an application that they may understand personally. It's like a B2B or a B2C kind of ideas. They're probably easier to get investors. But technology companies, worth starting, and I can't say, you know, don't try. I say it, you know, try to build, and as you build, try to build coalition with resources and connections outside of the Middle East, you know, with other research centers at different universities in Europe or different universities in America or Asia, and where you could take your knowledge and build on it with the partnership of those, in case it grows into something as you envision it, where maybe there is limitation to start an embedded system process in the Middle East, but maybe you could set something up in, you know, in a neighboring country or in a different country. I hope that answers.
Yeah, it seems like a great answer to me. If anyone has any other questions, please use the chat function. We have a couple of minutes, and Fadi's still happy to answer any other questions you might have. While I wait for any last minute question askers, I do want to ask you one other thing that I'm curious about. Was there any point during your career that you thought about quitting and giving up?
Yeah. It absolutely. Well, not lost, but I mean, there are definitely a couple of moments. I remember. So there were times when in my career in recruitment, when a .com crash came to, you know, this is 2001 or late 2001, early 2002. I was in the recruiting business, and suddenly no one needs any recruiters. And then I'm like, you know, I want to, you know, figure out, you know, I'll quit and I did quit for a while, and then kind of waited back and then decide to come back with a different frame. When I started Blackbox, I started with co-founders with this vision of doing something global, but then we had a different ideas about the direction where we're going to go. They wanted to go more on a business intelligence and aspect and develop information to serve big companies. And I was like, wait, we started this to help entrepreneurs globally, and this is not, I'm not interested in selling services to big companies. So we came to a difficult moment when we're breaking up, and I thought I'm going to quit and go back to recruiting, and I don't know if this is going to work. And so there are several moments when that happens. It happens about a year ago, after like I've done this program many times. It's just not, I don't like it to kind of just go on pilot with, it just wasn't necessarily where I wanted to do it more for the impact for the people that I want to reach more of, and I wasn't reaching more of those. And so these moments, not uncommon in the life of any founder, when you come to deciding, it's like, this is not working, what am I going to do? I'm going to quit and do something different or something. But it's also the same moments when you have to be really honest with yourself and kind of go back to the basics. Like, what do you think the possibilities? What do you think have changed? And where can you start again? And how can you adjust? And how can you move? Mm-hmm. So it's not a smooth sail for any reason all the time.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's entrepreneurship journey has been super smooth sailing. I think everyone's always curious to see, like, if it's normal that I want to quit and give up, or is it normal that I'm on a bumpy road? And I think it's great to hear from you that, yeah, it totally is.
It is normal. And I really think this is one of the highest values of, I used to call accelerators a group therapy for capitalists. It's like you need this emotional, psychological support, and that's the highest value for organization. Like also Recorded, it's a hub. The communities that Spark is building, those are like a concentration with the co-working places, the incubators, the accelerators. Is when you're working with other founders, you start acting in a different role when you see someone is really in a challenging time. Is like, what Hossein is like, shit, we can't do this, we can't do the payment. How can we sell a service when we can't accept money, when we can't pay money? Well, you want to throw the towels and quit, and then suddenly some other angle and open up. So, and something opens up, and so that's where I think it's very valuable to be in community and support of each other's as entrepreneurs, and because it's very, very normal to go through very difficult times. And there is something mysterious in the world, big, and we're not in control. We don't have, there's nothing is for certain.
Right.
Things changed. And, one of the things that I recall the most repeated when we've had founders from founder of Siri, founder of YouTube, founder of Square, founder of big companies, and that they've built multi-billion-dollar companies, and they come to the Blackbox program and they talk to founders. And I remember speaking with them and interviewing them. And then I would ask them some questions, and sometimes, quite often, they tell you it was very, we've heard it from founders of Google, that they faced very, very difficult times and they thought this is going to end. And then they say, we got lucky. So the humble one, they really will tell you something is like almost luck. You can't just depend on luck, but it's a random things of events. So it seems like life rewards, the clarity of vision and the persistence and the good effort. And that path is very, is not easy path to walk. Some days it could be up, another days down. And so that resilience is one of the key elements and the key characteristic of entrepreneur. Successful entrepreneurs must have this ability to withstand these challenges and this roller coaster that they live through in order to build a successful company. So there is no big success in any capacities where it was not faced with challenges. And it's my belief. I mean, the reason that I have high hope and I'm dedicating my focus now to helping companies from the Middle East and developing regions is because people who've lived these very challenging life conditions, they build this survivability core, and they still, they've seen death, and they've seen, not just the death of business, like they've seen like potentially the end of life. And then they saw the light again, and then life goes on, and they became thankful and hopeful and moved on. So that builds resilience, and that builds strength. This is the strength that when you put it in the frame of a startup, it becomes, your challenges in that place become really small based on your capacity to handle these kind of challenges. So
yeah, I mean, that's such a good answer. I think you did such a good job answering that we had many more questions come in. So we have a question from Mohammed that says, we have a mix of B2C and B2B business model. We are not sure which one we should start out with first, because we don't have any idea of what will produce more income in the short run. What is your advice, B2B or B2C? For a little bit of context, their startup, Hazara, enables people to buy, sell, rent, move, and maintain their properties without real estate agents.
Okay, good question. So, I wouldn't necessarily be focusing on a business model right away. I would be focusing on value creation. So there is the business model canvas that I don't know if you're familiar with it, and there is valued for the same, this Oscar Osterwalder and the other founder who did the business canvas that kind of maps out the different elements of how you connect a company into a cash flow. They created something in the value proposition canvas, also the value creation canvas. So focus on first, what is it? How do you create value? If you're building this service, to eliminate the real estate agent in between, who you're trying to serve here. So you're building, sounds like a marketplace. It's people who are renting or needing or moving, and the people who have the assets. So in that case, you need to be clear when you start this, who did you start this with mind? Did you want to help the people who have the assets to find a way to put the assets in the hand of people who would use it and pay them directly without the commission of the agent? Or did you start it from the place of, you're the one who is looking, and there are a lot of people like you looking for these services and the people with these assets? So it's understand what side your heart is on first. Try to build the value for, what would you need as someone to solve that problem. Then you put it out there and let, be willing to do B2B, B2C, what is it, what is the willingness, like be listening to the market. If you're getting a lot of requests from business to business, you want to accommodate what comes your way in the beginning. And then you start normalizing and deciding, and you may have 2 layers of it, or you may decide to shut one end and say, we only work with businesses, or we only work with individuals. So let that be evidence of the results instead of a strategic decision that you make before you execute.
Great. We have another question from Ayman. What are the ways for a team to have success locally, in their case, Yemen, and how to make their presence in social media stronger and a bit better?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part. What is the...
What are the ways for a team to find success locally? Ayman's based in Yemen and wants advice on having success in their local context.
Yeah, okay. That's a good question. I think the answer would be first is to define your success. Success is not necessarily the profit and not necessarily the money, so define your success in small steps. So if you're working with a team and the team's working together, acknowledge that as a success. Like, I have a team. I successfully managed to have a team with me already. And then set the milestone of, like, the success is right now we're going to launch the beta version, or the first generation of this service, or whatever it is. So so break down this, it's great to have a vision of the success that you want to have, the big company you want to build, the market that you want to conquer, but measure your success in a more pragmatic way, as to, on step by step, and celebrate those successes on a smaller step, and acknowledge that, and move to the next level. So I don't know if that answered your question, Ayman. I hope. I know not easy to be building in those regions either.
So I know we're almost out of time, but we do have 2 more questions. Do you have a couple of minutes to spare so we can go through them?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Great. So our next question is from Elif, and she asks, what is the biggest risk of building a startup and trying to expand our company internationally? What should we look out for and be prepared for in advance?
So there's two questions here. So the biggest risk for starting a company, the biggest risk to startup phase is founder conflict, in my opinion. I believe most startups fail because of founder issues. So clarifying that initially, if you're the only founder, hopefully you're not going to have conflict with yourself. So, but that's a difficult journey to be a single founder. But quite often, most of this conflict comes when you get validation, when a good success happens, whatever the level of success, you raise some money, you launch the product, things start working. Everybody starts to feel, now, if you're not aligned, everybody starts to want to have ownership of that success, and everybody wants to go in different direction. So make sure you're aligned from the beginning. Like, we're building this is why we're doing it, and have this, these issues among, the honest conversation and difficult conversation. Be willing to have those with other co-founders that you have, and maybe bring third-party people that you both respect to help you sort out through conflict and work through. So you build much better, stronger relationship amongst yourself. So hopefully that prevents it from failing. Of course, there are other challenges. Companies fail because sometimes they run out of money, but it's because they didn't execute as they thought. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons startup fails, but to me, it's one of the most key reason. I've seen startups with money fail because of the forces are not aligned internally. How do you expand globally is really an interesting thing, and that has been my vision with Blackbox and the Blackbox network is to facilitate these connections with people on from different regions, and they could learn from each other about this service. Okay, there's this kind of little scooter things is picking up in this country, and in your city, similar to my city, maybe we could, could we try something to use your office as an address, or to help us find some people to hire. So starting small through relationships is one of, I think, good way to do it. The other way is to be more very strategic in doing the study and the research, and knowing who are the partners, and try to reach out to these partners. And in any business communication, I find it more effective if you reach through a common contact, instead of just cold calling or sending something blank into generic email. So try to find some people who help you build on this trust level, that you're credible, you're doing something legitimate. They know these other people that they're credible, they will something legitimate. Could you guys facilitate us in introductions to explore? So it's not easy to grow globally. There are some product by default that they're by birth that they're global. That's the beautiful part about it. It helps to have a team. If you can have a team that is remote, it is to have a team members who are from different part of the world. So if you could work with another founder who are working in different countries, you're bringing 2 different countries and ecosystem and business practices, ideas together. That could help you kind of launch something globally.
Great. So our last question from Ayad is, I want to share with you one of my problems. He's a mobile applications developer, and when he tries to create a Google developer account, he can't find his country, Iraq, in the list of supported countries. So it's similar to the PayPal problem. Do you have any advice for him?
Yeah, Iraq is erased from the list, huh? Ouch.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I don't know and then what if you put Jordan, and how did that help you, or Turkey? And you know, so there may be ways that we could find why is that information is critical for the Google developer team. I mean, it may be worth exploring around that and doing some pushing in that. If you send me something, I could try to see if I could do something from here to help. I don't know, I mean, if it's payment system and other, I mean, of other things, there may be legal reasons that Google say, no, we have to have a country and we have to have a bank account or something. But if you're developing just code, there shouldn't be a need to be having an association with a country, in my opinion. I mean, that's an argument that I will take to Google developers personally, and I'll try to see if I could explore it further to see if we could help.
Yeah, and there's some awesome advice in the chat function. So I love that you all are talking to each other and helping each other. So thank you so much, Fadi, for taking the time to talk to us today. I think I speak for everyone when I say we are so grateful for all of your advice today. So next week, we'll be talking to Efecan Erdur. He's the co-founder of Kolayik, which provides a new generation of HR management software on the cloud. So we'll be here at the same time next week on the 13th of May at the same time at 6 o'clock. Daria will shortly be sharing a link to a survey in the chat. Please take the time to fill it out because it really helps us to improve our future sessions. And thank you everyone for coming today. We really loved having you all here.
It was wonderful being with you all, and thank you so much. I know it's right before Iftar, so some of you are probably fasting and it's the end of the day. So I appreciate your attention and your time, and Ramadan Mubarak, and inshallah, peace, hopefully soon to all of us.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you, Rico, for doing this.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Have a good night.
I enjoyed it. Ciao.
Ciao.